Welcome to this episode of Local Genius where we cover stakeholders. Now, you may not like stakeholders, but what you think is irrelevant because they are incredibly important to any business, organization, or project that you will ever work on. So as we go through and talk about stakeholders, we'll help you figure out who they are, what they're interested in, how they influence your project, and then which ones require your attention. We'll also cover an example using the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill from May 2010. So first we have to understand what a stakeholder is. A stakeholder is anybody who is impacted or who can impact the outcome of a situation or your business. So if we look at this stakeholder wheel, we'll see that there are 4 primary areas that stakeholders fall into, whether they're internal or external. If you start at the top and move clockwise around the circle, we'll see that press, customers, and financial institutions, those types of stakeholders that are external are concerned with image. Are you the type of organization or company that does what they say they're going to do, that produces good products and services? They're looking at your reputation. Moving down, continuing clockwise, you'll see financial institutions, investors, regulators. People are concerned with credibility who are investing money. So if you are a nonprofit, this might include donors as well. Moving up around the circle, you'll see regulators, suppliers, and unions, and these are your business-to-business partners, people who engage in business operations with you and are looking to see if you are a good business partner. Do you follow through on your transactions and commitments? And finally, moving back to the top of the circle, again, you have employees who are internal stakeholders, and their primary concern is going to be the identity of the organization, because any organization, project, or business you work on also reflects on you and you on it. So what does this look like for real? If we look at BP, BP has a set of stakeholders that when the May 2010 Deepwater Horizon explosion happened and the fire broke out and they started dumping oil into the Gulf, those stakeholders didn't change, but they were certainly impacted and would certainly have a different impact on how BP as an organization was viewed. So if you look going around that same circle, you have the press, BP's customers, its shareholders, the U.S. government, the environment, its business partners, and its employees. And all of these people are affected in very different ways by the oil spill. So if you're in a situation like that, this is clearly a crisis, how do you determine which stakeholders are the most important to reach out to? Because clearly, if you reach out to one of them before you reach out to the others, or you consider the concerns of your partners, say, over the concerns of the environment, you're going to damage your company both in reputation and in potentially financial ways and lots of other ways. So let's look at one easy way to move through identifying the needs of stakeholders and prioritizing them. First, we look at power, and power really reflects influence. Does that stakeholder have much influence over the outcome of the project or the business organization that you're working for? So for example, if we thought about the media has a lot of power to influence how BP was seen during that oil spill. Does the environment? No, the environment doesn't have a lot of power. It can't really send out PR messages. It relies on the media to assert that power. Then we move to legitimacy. Legitimacy is the valid concern of that organization. So if you think about it again, the media probably has a pretty valid concern because they're representing the environment, which has an incredibly valid concern. There's thousands of gallons of oil pumping into the Gulf at any given moment. But if you think about investors, maybe their concerns are a little bit less as compared to the environment because it's a lower impact. Sure, my retirement fund may be impacted. However, the impact is far less than it is to everyone whose livelihood relies on the Gulf and coast and its environment. So the legitimacy of that investor is lower than that of the stakeholder, the environment. Finally, you look at urgency, which is the need for immediate action. So is it immediate action that the investor needs, or is it immediate action that the environment needs? So the environment here is higher as a stakeholder in terms of urgency than the investor is. And the media might be higher as well, because if you don't respond to that media, they might put out information that speculates about what you're doing, which might damage your reputation, image, and your business even more. So let's look at this as with BP stakeholders. CNN was running 24/7 coverage of this event, the Deepwater Horizon spill, and they represented, in this case, the media. So in terms of power, which is the P we see here, do they have a lot of influence? Yes, it's extremely high. They are influencing public opinion and the images that they're putting out, the pundits that they're bringing on to speak about the damage, etc. All influences public perception. So they can influence the way BP is seen and the way that the entire situation unfolds. Legitimacy. Does the media have high legitimacy concerns in this situation? Probably, because they represent, for the most part, the concerns of the people that live in the Gulf region, which is their economic livelihood, as well as the environment. We didn't even know the damage that was being done to the environment at that time. And finally, urgency. Do you need to respond immediately to the media? Yes, BP did. So in each case, in power, legitimacy, and urgency, this stakeholder's concerns are high. Moving on to customers. Do they have a lot of power? Maybe at the pump a little bit. Probably not as high as the media. Is their legitimacy high? Well, not as much. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want at the time to be seen pumping BP gas into my car, but that's a little bit less of a concern than, say, someone whose entire livelihood or life, if you're a dolphin or whatever, lives in the Gulf. That's different. And urgency, probably lower. So we can do this with the environment. Do they have a lot of power? No, not until fish can organize protests. Legitimate? Yeah. Serious legitimacy, because the entire Gulf was being affected by thousands of gallons of oil that were just getting dumped into it. Never mind the chemicals that they were dumping to disperse the oil and etc. Is the urgency there? Yeah. Something needs to be done immediately for the environment. The longer it goes, the more damage is done. Investors, a lot of power, less legitimacy, medium to low urgency. And if we go through then with regulators, with business partners, and then with employees, you can then begin to see who is a high power, high legitimacy, high urgency stakeholder, and who are lowers, and identify then the key stakeholders that you need to first be concerned with as you reach out and begin to solve this problem. So with your projects, consider who are the stakeholders in relation to image, credibility, responsibility, and identity. Are they internal or external? What do they want? And are their concerns legitimate? Do they have power to influence? And is their concern urgent? Does it need to be dealt with immediately for the project that you're working on?